Grover is over on a play date at the moment. Who's that now? There's somebody right behind me. Oh, there we go. That's Howard, that's it. Grover's over at a play date because my neighbours, they have a pup, Isla. So Grover goes over and keeps her company. Oh, Jesus, bliss. And that's Joy. Joy, you're a bit of a weight now. God bless you. But anyway. Um, So Grover goes over and plays with Isla, and it's great because the two of them are really tired by the end of the play date, which is great. Everybody's here and having a great day. There's like a ring of goats around me now. Yes. And of course there's Ruby, the closest to my heart, God bless her. Something very interesting happened not so long ago. There's Dick and Heach yawning by. And there's Twink. You always know Twink by the little white spots. And she's doing so much better. I think she, like the temperatures were at her because, oh guys, this is rough now. Um, Ruby, you'll be inside in the phone. You'll come out to somebody. I think the temperatures were at her yesterday because it was so warm during the day. And not last night, the night before there was frost and it was quite cold. So I think she was just kind of a heat stroke, I suppose. But it was so great to come home from work because it wasn't great. And to have her fine and running around the place was absolutely wonderful. My goodness, Ruby, you got a fine load of milk this morning and you're looking for more. But something fantastic happened. Right, there's your one, Jesse. Right? I decided to treat myself and I had a little bar of chocolate. Well, my goodness, when I opened the chocolate, she jumped on me. She jumped on me. Jessie, and you're not we already had our row already. But so I think Jessie was really reared as a complete pet. And she's just so lucky she found herself here. Because I'd say she was fed on chocolate and potatoes and everything like that. So everybody's jumping on my bag and I don't know what's inside there. We're all good. Look at those Payne's grey clouds. Payne's grey is a very beautiful type of grey. It's like a bluey grey. God almighty, I'm only trying to fix her up. And Nettles, you're at her. There's a big gang here. Do you know what this is like now? With all the mothers and the kids, it's like waiting for a football match to start. You know, the way all the team is set out there. It is. Look at Ruby. Look at this now for stamping. Oh my goodness. I tell you, the next time I get glasses, they'll be like some sort of a goggles. And they chew my hair now. They really do chew on it and the beard as well. So we'll have a look. Margot's over there sitting quiet and Pearl underneath. And Ruby, Saoirse's going over. And Jessie is just crazy for the chocolate. Absolutely out for mind. Ah, no. Who is that? We have a tough morning. So yes, I am so glad that I didn't do Eva Am I Home, that programme, on Thursday night, because already I've just been able to take things calm, learn how to do it properly, go over it, practice it. And everybody lined up. I have a musical guest, a photographer guest, a chef making a summer salad, and a few people about what's on for the month. So that'll be all happening Monday at 8 o'clock, which is great. My goodness, I don't know, will I be able to tell a story or not with all these nibblers going on? I can't remember how many earrings I have to check that they're all there. They're taking turns now. I am now the playground. I am the trampoline here, being ate and being jumped on. And Jessie is now convinced that there's chocolate in my bag. What do you think, Jess? Say hello. So the story I have this morning is a lovely story. It's a great story. It's a bit long, but that's all right. That's what Yarn in the Barn is for, rather than rushing through. Because in the mornings, I mean, the stories are great, but they're very small and without that kind kind of complication, which is probably good early in the morning anyway. And the story this morning was collected by Oscar Wilde's mother, Lady Wilde, and I can't think of her first name, but she was called Speranza. Was it like kind of like a nickname or something? But she's collected a lot of Irish folk tales as well, and they're really good. There's do you know something? They say that today is the day of the fairies, and did I show you my bush? I have my bush decorated over there with ribbons and gibbles and stuff, and I wish I'd more, so I'm thinking I might keep decorating it until the 21st of June and let it go over the summer then. I don't know. That's Ruby. So that's the bush with the ribbons on it there. And of course, I'm kind of all over the place now because I was listening to my first cousin, Shane Lehan, on Kerry Radio with Joe McGill, two fine men, and talking about the Maeve and the stuff like that and all the traditions and everything. It was great. I was down here late last night because Tiberius got loose. Tiberius is the puck for next year, and he's a fine stack of a thing. And there's a bit of a about him, and he got loose. So I had to come down and retie him. So there was that element of the fairies were around last night. And how I found out was a neighbour rang me. I'm sure somebody was saying, how did he know the Tiberius was, loose? And that's Ruby just biting through my finger. So I got Tiberius tied up, and I decorated my bush then for the fairies, to appease the fairies and make that we have plenty of good luck. And I have a May blessing there as well. I'll probably share it on Facebook because I say it, but I want to write it down, so I'll say it again. So I'll share that on Facebook later. But the story by Speranza is a great story, and this story, it's a bit chilly. Now, this morning was freezing. Now, it was really funny. Before the sun rose, it was warm. And just as the sun rose up, it got really cold. The coldness happened with now if you can see this, look at this. The coldness really came about once the sun rose in the sky. That's when my hands were frozen, bringing down the bucket and the bag and the food and this and that and the other. And then it warmed up, but now it's a bit chilly again. So this story is all about an old man called Thomas. And Thomas was very connected to the fairies, and they looked after him very well. Ruby's eating my fingers here. They looked after him very well, and so much so... Sit down now, I'm telling a story, lads. Shh. So much so that every morning he would wake up before sunrise, and he would go out and he would collect all the food he needed for the day. There was bread and there was cheese and there was everything you could imagine, and he just collected the food and he brought it in from his garden. And he did this every morning without fail. He got up before sunrise, brought in the food for the day, so he didn't really need much money otherwise. And of course, one day there was a man travelling with his daughter, and they asked could they spend the night with him, with Thomas. And Thomas said, no problem at all, you're more than welcome. And Thomas came in. He brought in the traveller and the traveller's daughter. And anyway, between the jigs and the reels, the morning the traveller was leaving and the daughter was leaving. Of course, Thomas had been up and he brought in the food. And Thomas looked at the girl and he said, God, you're lovely. Would you not stay with me? And back then, falling in love was much easier than it is now, I think. So she did. Or maybe these are always in stories. So she said, yes, I love you too, and I'm going to stay here with you. And then they fell in love, they got married, and they had a baby boy. And everything was going great. The baby boy was called Thomas as well, young Thomas. And after a few years, maybe about 16 or 18 years, just before Thomas was a young man, the old Thomas died. But he said to the wife, he said, no matter what you do, make sure you go out in the morning before sunrise and bring in all the food you need, because the fairies will look after you as well as they looked after me. And that was all right. The next morning before sunrise, the woman got up and she brought in the food, all the food she needed for the day. And she went on like this for a while. But then she kind of felt, wouldn't it be easier if I brought in more food, like food for the week? and I'd only have to go out once a week then before sunrise. So she did this. The next morning, she brought in a plethora of food. She had 2 trucks of it. Good morning, Marianne. Lovely to see you. And she brought in a plethora of food, and she didn't bother going the next morning or the next morning or the morning after. And when she went out on the 5th morning, there was no food. The fairies don't like messing about. They're like the administration of a company. And no more food. So poor young Thomas had to go out and find a living, find some way to make money. And he was kind of a bit spoilt now because he always had plenty of food. And they, once you have food, everything else falls in. And that was all right. Oh, Ruby. That is my back she's walking on now. This is the goat yoga. So Thomas had to go off, and the mother gave him the last loaf of bread they had. And he went off out on the road, travelling around, talking to this one, talking to that one. And he met a poor man, poorer than himself. And the poor man said, "Have you anything to give me? Have you anything? I'm starved with the hunger." And young Thomas said, "Look, I've a loaf of bread. I'm not going to give it to you because I would starve. But if I don't give it to you, you will starve. So how about we share it together?" And the man said, "Look, I found a penny in my pocket. We'll go to the inn and we'll share the bread, and I'll buy some milk. We'll have a jug of milk and with a loaf of bread, and we'll be all right." I know. How could you tell or watch anything with Ruby pulling at me? And who's this here now? Howard. Throw off your mental chains. Woo, woo, woo. So they went into the inn anyway. They had the jug of milk and the loaf of bread, and they were cutting away. And Thomas noticed he'd cut 3 or 4 slices off the bread, and when he'd look again, the loaf would be full. And he'd pour out the jug of milk, and he'd pour a good few glasses, and when he'd look again, the jug would be full. And this went on for a long time. This went on for a very long time until they were fine and full, the 2 of them. And the old man said, "Now, Thomas, you're only starting out in life, but one of your first deeds was to be kind to a person. And that's always a great thing. So I'm going to give you this ring." And he gave him the ring, and he said, "Now, wherever you put this ring and wish for gold, whatever the ring is in will fill up with gold." And oh my God, Thomas said, "This is brilliant." So he put the ring into his left pocket, and he wished, and it filled up with gold. He put it into his right pocket, and he wished, and it filled up with gold. And he said, "This is amazing." And he went off straight to TK Maxx, and he bought beautiful clothes and shoes. And then he went to the hairdressers, and he got his beard trimmed up and his hair trimmed up, and he got a facial and everything. He looked fantastic. He went off and he bought a car, and he got a bag, and he put the ring in the bag, and he wished for more gold, and he did more shopping. And oh my God, he said, "Now, do you know where I'm going to go? I'm going to the king's palace to ask the princess to marry me, because they'll be so enthralled with me having so much money and looking so well and all the TK Maxx clothes and the fine car and everything." Off he went to the castle, and they immediately brought him in, and they said, "Oh my goodness, this fella's very well off. Look at the clothes he's wearing and the car he's driving, and oh my goodness." And he was there anyway, and the princess was looking, and she was like, "Oh, he's a fine catch now, and so much money and everything. I'm very interested." And Thomas was there, and he was having a great time with everybody, and they gave him a glass of wine. Now, over the years, Thomas had never had drank alcohol before, and he drank a glass of the wine, and of course then he drank another one, and then he drank another one, and then he drank another one, and he was a little bit worse for wear, and he was like, "I'm the best here. I'm going to do this, and can I buy you a car?" And they said, "He's no good to anyone now. Put him away to bed." So the servants caught him, and they brought him up to his bedroom. But when they were bringing him along, didn't he lose the ring? And if he did, they put him into the bed. That was fine. The princess was going to bed after him, and there she found the ring. So she got the ring. She said, "Look, I'll tease your man in the morning about where his ring was and stuff like that." So she just put it into her jewellery box, and she was thinking, she said, "That guy's so rich. He won't be interested in me, because I know we're king and royalty and everything, but we don't have that much money. I wish I had gold." Next thing, her jewellery box filled up, if there was any space inside there, filled up with gold. And she put it into another bag and she wished and it filled up with gold. And she put it into another bag and she wished and it filled up with gold. And she said, there's no point in that fella having the ring. I'm going to have the ring myself. So she kept the ring, and the next morning Thomas woke up with his head and he was like, oh my God. And he said, where? And he asked her, did you see my ring anywhere? And she said, no, I didn't see the ring anywhere. So he was all right. He said, but did you see my ring? And then he looked in behind her door, and what did he see? But all the bags of gold. He said, you have my ring. You have my ring, and you better give it back to me. And she said, finders, keepers, losers, weepers. And they threw him out of the castle, and he'd no more money. And very quickly the clothes got very giblach altogether, and the car ran out of petrol, and he'd no money to pay for petrol, so he had to leave the car after him. Yes, Sir Harold. He had to leave the car after him. Yippee yip. And he was back to square one. Well, he didn't want to go home in the brightness anyway. He said that he'd wait until it was dark. So he hid in the grounds of an old castle, and he stayed there until it got dark. And if he did, he fell asleep. And he woke up to see two cats, and not only see them, but to hear them. And they were talking. They said, where is our master? Where is the head cat gone? And next thing, this black cat jumped out and he said, here I am. I'm after giving a ring to Thomas because we wanted to give him something back after the food went wrong. So they were the fairies that were looking after the father all the time, the spirits. And he said, I gave the ring to Thomas. And they said, oh, how did he get on? Oh, he said, not very well at all. I disguised myself as the cat and I went up. And I was sitting up when I saw Thomas. He got too drunk and he lost the ring. Oh, and they said, any more news from the castle? He said, well, I'll tell you this now. When I was jumping around trying to eat the food of the king, didn't he catch me with his knife and on my tail, and 3 drops of blood fell into the king's stone, into the food. The king ate it, and now he's in fierce pain because he's got 3 kittens inside him. And the only thing that'll cure him is 3 glasses of water from the holy well here. And all the cats went off laughing. And Thomas said, this is my chance now. This is it. Well, he disguised himself as a doctor. And he went off and he said, hello, I'm Dr. Important. And I'm here to cure the king. Well, there was a queue of wise men and wise women and yogis and charlatans and PhD people and everything there to try and cure the king. And if they were, nobody could cure the king. And Thomas went up as the doctor, and he said, now. And he had 3 glasses of the water from the well, and he gave it to the king. And next thing, the king, and he threw up 3 beautiful black kittens. And the kittens ran off screaming. Well, Thomas took off his disguise, and he said, I'm Thomas, I'm here. I want to marry the princess, and I want my ring back. And the princess started laughing at him. She said, I have your ring. I have kept it longer than you did, so 'tis mine now. And they threw him out of the castle again. Poor old Thomas. He was heading home anyway. And again, he said he wouldn't go home in the daylight, so he fell asleep in a tree around the ruin, again, the old castle. And he fell asleep there, and he woke up to fierce arguing and fighting going on. That's right, Howard. Fierce arguing and... Oh, he pulled the hairs out of me. If there's anybody there that wants the hairs pulled, the follicles and all, Howard will do it. And he heard this fighting and this arguing, and there was 3 brothers there. And the 3 brothers were fighting because the father had left them 3 magical gifts. There was a ring that when you wished you could be wherever you wanted once you were wearing it. There was a goblin that never dried up. And there was a harp that played any kind of music you wanted. And they were fighting because the oldest brother reckoned he should have everything. The youngest brother reckoned that everything should be shared. And the middle brother was fed up that they were both arguing and he couldn't think of anything to say. So they were all fighting, the 3 of them. And Thomas said, look, I'll show you what to do now. Ye go off, take 3 days to think about it, and when you come back, I'll have the perfect solution. So off they went. I'll give my... Not at all, you're fine out. But, what's happened there now? So they went off, happy as Larry. Thomas took up the 3 gifts and off he went to the castle again. He didn't even go off. He put on the ring and wished to be back in the castle. Well, he grabbed the princess by the hand and he wished to be out in the dark forest in the middle of the country. And off they did, and he had her there now, and he left her there, and he wished, and he came back, and he said, now, I want to marry the princess, and I want you to stop making a fool of me. So if I bring the princess back, I want to be allowed to marry her and become king myself. God, they all agreed. And he had the harp, so he had the harp playing music for them, and he went off. He went off to the forest, he brought the princess back, and of course, what was the 3rd gift? Only that the chalice of the wine, the goblet of that never emptied of wine. Well, look at this now for a crack. Well, he started drinking the wine, and we know already that the wine doesn't suit him. And he was this, and he was that, and he was everything, and before he knew where he was, he had no harp, he had no ring, he had no goblet, and he was thrown out again. If you eat Ruby has 1 foot on me now. Shh. Hello, Jess. Don't kill anyone now. There's no chocolate. So they threw him out again, and he had nothing now. 2 rings, he'd lost a goblet and a harp. He was fed up with himself. And then he saw a tree with some beautiful red apples, and he took a bite of the apple. Oh, he got an awful headache, and what grew out of his head? Only 2 antlers. 2 deer's antlers. God almighty, he said, I have it. He said, I'm going to get a load of red apples. And he no sooner had a bag full of red apples when he saw another tree with very bright green apples. And he took a bite of that, and the horns fell off. And he had a bag of the green apples as well. So off he went to the castle again, and he threw the apples out, and he said, look, take a bite of this, everybody. And everybody in the castle took a bite of these beautiful red apples. They were so beautiful. And they had horns like goats, like gazelles, like moose, like deers, like cows, like any kind of an animal with horns. There was a pair of them in there. And he said, now, I want the bishop with the moose's horns to marry myself and the princess so I can be king. He was learning, you see. And then if I get married to the princess, I can, and get my rings and my harp and my goblet back, then I'll take the horns off you. So they did all this for him. He got his rings back. He was now going to be king. Oh, he was now going to be king. And he gave him all the green apples to eat. Look at this for a crack. He gave him all green apples to eat. Oh, and look at this now, look. They all lost the horns off him. And he was a very good king. And himself and the princess, they got on very well, even though they had a bad start. And they had plenty of gold, and they could go everywhere they wanted. Abiding by the restrictions. And he lived very happily ever after. I do love that story. It's kind of complicated. It's very hard to get into your head, Jessie, isn't it? It is, Rugel. But I do like it. And again, I didn't realise Oscar Wilde's mother, Speranza, was a folklore collector as well. Now, you ousted Harold while we were talking, so you have to stay here now and be nice and attentive and fall asleep like he did. You can't be running away now. No? So we're all waiting for rain. I have a beautiful bag of organic herb seed with lots of different herbs and grasses and stuff that I've sat down in the Strand field. We're waiting for a drop of rain, and we'll all be going down there. We'll be kind of splitting up a little bit now, which is no harm to, because there'll be I have some other fields where that some of the older kids could go, Unity and Druid and Driocht. Maybe Bliss as well. You see the bottle feeders could go up there as well. But the ones that are still drinking off their moms will stay with the moms. So we'll have to make that out. It's just, without the extra fields, you have to be clever, you see. So that is it. The audiobook idea is still going. Kind of working on that. There's a lot with work now at the moment. All this work. You see, I usually work doing art in the hospitals and in a daycare centre settings. But this year, because they're all closed to most people, I I've been swapped over to do adult education, and that's great, but there's a whole lot of paperwork and ticking boxes and showing that you have ticked the boxes and ticking the boxes again to show that you've ticked the boxes, and all that kind of thing. So it's all a bit stressful and very new to me. So um we'll work. Oh, we'll work on that as well. Judy, Ruby really does bite down on my finger. I think so. I think, Kate, I think that's nobody realizes that his mom was out collecting stories from people, and I think that's where he got a lot of. Well, I don't know, but again, Sharon, it's all up for conjecture. I think that's where he got a lot of his inspiration for stories and stuff. And like Oscar's stuff is much more kind of global rather than Irish, but you can see that he probably made it more that way. Look at the two of you, and you're rowing over me. And look at the jets here. But of course, so it was May morning, and it was a beautiful morning, as I say, before the sun rose, and then as the sun rose, so we're just waiting for the rain to come now. And you can see it now, everything is just a little bit dry. And the grass, I don't think the grass is as nice like this, really dry. I think once the rain comes, the grass gets a little bit kind of swollen and luscious. So we're all doing fine. We're all doing fine. There's Nettles. I don't know where. Oh, they're over there. Saoirse and Drolene. Honey is over there. Honey's kid last year, Blossom, was born around this time, and that's why I called her Blossom, because my mother loved the Blossom today, Queen of the doo and Queen of the May. Dee 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 dee. And she's doing great. Blossom is doing fine. So I don't know, is Honey going to kid very soon? We could have another one. Oh, there's Howard. Where's he going? Where's he gone? So that's about it. I'm going to go off now and watch more videos about turning Zoom into YouTube and how to do that, and editing videos for Monday night at 8 o'clock. And we'll see how it goes. I don't think I have anything else to say. Was there anything? And I should make a list. Jessie. So now at least I know Jessie and Chocolate. Where are you, Jess? Oh, yes, hold on. Jessie loves her chocolate. That's right, Jessie. And she's turning out to be a nice milker. She is. So that's about it. Lala Bealtana. Again, you just have to mind your animals. I'll share that blessing on Facebook now. I did last year, and it is lovely. And I'll be saying it later to everybody. And there's such a magic in the air today, and hopefully we'll get the rain with it to how would you say, solidify that magic. Slán and Ishgachtana, have a great day and have a great long weekend. We'll talk to you Monday evening, either at my home at 8 o'clock. I'll be there, or I'll be grey, one of the two. Slán and Ishgachtana, go raibh maith go bhfear fad. Slán. Oh, there we go. I said I couldn't get out of here.